Hello and welcome to the Authentic Uprising Show. I'm your host, Jill Simons. I am so excited to grow in the radical art of standing in what God says about you with you today. This show is a place where we pour into our concept of who we are, how we've been created with intention by God, and how we can live out of the freedom that He has for us more every single day. Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Authentic Uprising podcast. As always, I'm your host, Jill Simons, and I'm so excited to start the month of March with you. This is my birthday month, so March has always been one of my favorite months of all time. And growing up in Iowa, it was so frequent that there was still snow on the ground. But one of my favorite things about my birthday, which is halfway through the month, March 15th, was that was usually the point at which the daffodils started to bloom. And that was always just so special and meaningful to me that it lined up with my birthday like that, because it was such a gift of renewal and such a beautiful expression of God's timing, the way He has timed the seasons and the cycles of plants and all of these things to work together so that every year, these things happen on a predictable basis, even when it seems like the winter has gotten so long and it seems like it's high time for spring. The Lord times these things perfectly based on the needs of all of creation, and that sometimes doesn't line up with our timing, which leads us so perfectly into the topic for this month, which is God's timing. So this month, we are really going to be dismantling the lie that it's too late. So this can look like so many different situations in your life. For a lot of the people listening, I know that there's questions of, am I ever going to get married? Am I ever going to meet the person that I'm going to spend the rest of my life with? Am I ever going to find a career that's really satisfying for me? Am I ever going to have a baby? Am I ever going to find something that really lights me up, something that really interests me to invest my life into? Or am I always going to be just seeking and not able to find what I'm looking for? This can look like so many different things in your individual life and also in the different stages of life. And so wherever you are at, whatever it feels like it's too late for, I am here to tell you today that it's not, that there is time. And we actually have a keychain in the shop that I love and that we are sharing again this month that says, if you're still breathing, it's not too late. And how true is that? How many people have met the Lord, maybe even for the first time at the end of their life, on their deathbed? And again, like we talked about in January, these transformations, these things that we want to come about are not bound to our idea of how it's possible for them to come about. This has been one of the biggest themes this year in my prayer life, is the Lord really teaching me that my attachment to the how is not something that's good for me. And if you go back and listen to the podcast with Maria Abbey from last month, she was at this point in having gone through these several dating relationships where she was just like, how, Lord, how am I ever going to get married on your timeline or on a reasonable timeline, because of all these things that happened? And she had had several long relationships, and then when it was finally the person that the Lord had prepared for her, she was met, engaged, and preparing to be married in less than a year, which is something that just totally defied her vision of how something could happen. Now, I share that story not because I want you to focus on, okay, if I am praying and checking all the boxes, God is going to deliver exactly what I want in this super compressed timeline. That's not the takeaway. The takeaway is, even when we don't see how something is going to come about in whatever timeline, God is not limited by that. We are the ones who are putting those limitations on the situation. So whatever it is that you feel like you're waiting for, I want to tell you that it's not too late. You could be, thinking that it's too late for you to really become the person you want to be. It's too late for you to hope for a good thing that you desire in your life, whether it's school, marriage, career, family, friends, the health you've been praying for, whatever it is not too late as long as you are still walking with the Lord. And I love to think about the fact that these good things that we desire, especially healing and unity with God, faith, things like that, it could happen miraculously now, or it could happen in time over the course of our lives. But those things are going to be perfected before we enter heaven. Now, that won't apply to every situation. You're not necessarily going to, miraculously get married or have a baby, on your way into heaven. But when those things that we desire formation-wise within our hearts and within ourselves, it's never too late for God to build those things in us. So to look at this, we are going to be memorizing the verse Psalm 27:14 together this month, which is a hard one for a lot of people. I'll read it to you and then we'll talk about it. So it says, "Wait on the Lord, be of good courage, and he shall strengthen your heart." Wait, I say, on the Lord. Oh, nobody's favorite, right? Nobody likes to wait. Waiting rooms. It's interesting to think about waiting rooms. And if you go back to my Advent episode, you can hear about this idea of waiting from the standpoint of waiting for Christmas. But you think about waiting rooms. In the past, waiting rooms used to be a place of silence and the possibility for connection. So maybe you would, read a newspaper at best in terms of distraction. Otherwise, you'd be sitting in silence, or you'd have the opportunity to connect with the other people waiting alongside you. And I want to point out the way that waiting rooms and how they are different now than they were in the past really speaks to an issue in our culture with waiting. So, like I said, in the past used to be silence and connection in those spaces, whereas now everyone's on their phone, everyone's on their devices, everyone is really investing most of the time in distraction. That's not the absolute only thing that can be done on a phone. Obviously, some people are working on things or answering messages, etc. But typically, I think it's kind of fair to assume that in a lot of situations, people are distracting themselves from the waiting with that device. And I wonder how this has seeped into the rest of how we view waiting in other parts of our lives. There is really an ability to escape the waiting through our devices and things like that we've never had before, that I think is impacting our ability to wait well. We're losing that ability to sit in silence and to be open to the connections that can occur in the waiting. So I think that that's a beautiful part of the gift of waiting, honestly, is having the people that are waiting alongside you and having this be something that knits you together even more, knits you together as a community and friends and family, where you're able to wait through this hard situation together. And obviously there's still situations like this that happen, but a lot of times it's really like the acute situations of life. Someone has received a cancer diagnosis, a child is ill, someone has passed away. And there's these periods of waiting that communities still go through together, but they are less ordinary. We have a lot less everyday opportunities to wait together than I think we used to because of our connection to our devices. And so that's something that I would love for you to reflect on as we go through this month, is how are you distracting yourself in the waiting that's making you not able to receive the fruit that the waiting might have for you. There's this amazing Maverick City music song called Wait on You, and it's about waiting on the Lord. This exact topic, we're going to link it in our playlist for the month. But this concept of waiting on the Lord, there's this beautiful line in the song that says, it's not about the fact that you wait, it's about what happens when you wait. It's about who you become when you wait. And there's that formation that can happen when we're open to it. But when we are distracting ourselves, when we're constantly like, well, what can I do to avoid thinking about the fact that I'm waiting? I don't think there's a posture of receptivity there. I think it's hard for us to receive what it is the Holy Spirit wants to share with us in those moments. And as we know, God is a gentleman. He's not going to like, no, stop it. I'm going to get rid of all the distractions. Sometimes he does come in big ways like that, but I think that's the exception rather than the rule. A lot of times he lets us govern those, smaller everyday decisions in our lives by ourselves. And he doesn't, take away our power to do that. But there is things that he has for us that we could receive if we were open to letting that distraction go. So I want you to think about, when you wait, what do you go to kind of forget about the fact that you're waiting? Some people, it might be TV shows. Some people, it might be games. Some people, it might be scrolling on Facebook. Some people, it might be the fridge. Whatever it is for you, be aware of that, not from a place of judgment and saying, gosh, this is so awful that I do that, but just an awareness so that as you go through this month and you see yourself heading to the fridge when you're not hungry, you see yourself, picking up another new TV show to binge night after night, be aware of whether or not there is something that you don't want to feel or something that you don't want to go through as you do that action. And I'm going to be doing this along with you because I have several coping mechanisms like this in my life that I use to avoid the feeling of waiting, the feeling of the unknown, the fact that I don't know how. And so my encouragement to you is not to cold turkey stop, never do those things again, anything like that. It's to notice when you do those things and take a period to pray first and invite the Lord into that discomfort that you're feeling. And say, Lord, I don't really know what else to do right now. This is what I know to do, but I'd really like you to teach me something better. So I am working on being open to receiving that from you. And maybe that doesn't mean that you don't do your kind of avoidance activity at all, but maybe it's shorter, maybe it's lessened, and you are creating some space for the Lord to move first. I want to see what that does for you and I this month as we move forward in that, where we really allow the work of waiting to do something in our hearts and our lives. And so I've got some more great verses that I'll be sharing on Instagram and on Facebook this month, both in our private Facebook group and on our Instagram page, about this idea of trusting the Lord's timing. And there's one more that I want to share here on the podcast that I think is really, really important to remember. And it's quoted so often. We have another keychain with it actually in the shop. And it's Jeremiah 29:11. And I'm going to read verse 12 as well. 11 is the one that we all know. And I'm going to add on the 12 because I think it's really helpful as well. It says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future." And here's 12. "Then you will call on me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you." So that's kind of where the inspiration is coming for this approach to this month. We're going to do the work of calling on God, coming to Him, praying to Him, and giving him the opportunity to listen to us. And this is something that I think a lot of us get kind of mentally twisted around about, because we're like, okay, well, the Lord knows. The Lord knows what I'm going through. The Lord knows what I'm thinking and feeling. Why is it necessary that I spell it out for him? And I think this is really similar to our human relationships, right? So you have intimate relationships with other human beings, and you might be able to tell that they're feeling a way. And obviously this is at a lesser degree than God, absolutely. But we have this intuition about how they are feeling, but there's no opportunity for that to be something that draws the two of you together, or that you go through together, if there's not an openness on the part of the person with the feeling to share it with you. So we have to put in that effort to share it so that the Lord can walk with us through it. Because when we do not share it with him, we're essentially saying like, no, I've got this, Lord. I'm going to walk through this on my own. And again, constant theme, God is a gentleman. He's like, okay, you may do that. I think that you would be better served by letting me come with you, but I'm not going to stop you. And the truth of the matter is, we always are better served by letting him come with us. And so whatever it is that you're waiting on, I want to challenge you with the idea that it could be the wait that is where God wants to work with you right now. And maybe he has things for you in the waiting that it wouldn't be possible for you to receive if you just received the thing that you are waiting on right now. And I've experienced this so many times throughout my own life, and I am sure that you have too. If you trace the story of your life back through the different things that you've experienced, I am confident that you will see a place where when you were walking consciously with the Lord through a time of waiting, there was growth and there was meaning there that could only happen through that period of waiting. And then when the waited for thing comes, it is a different you that's able to receive that. And so I just encourage you that whatever it is you're waiting on, talk to God about that. Surrender that to God. Yell about it, cry about it, be upset about it, whatever makes sense for your situation. Feel your feelings, of course, but feel your feelings in a space where you've invited God to be with you. Don't make it something that makes you angry at him and you go to your own room to pout away from him. Let it be something that you do together with him, because I guarantee you that is his vision for this time in your life, whatever it is. He desires to let this be a time of knitting you even deeper into his heart, sharing his heart even more with you, so that when you receive what it is that he has for you, again, it's a different you that receives it. And that's going to make it so, so, so much better. Now, of course, we need to have a footnote. What if it seems like, or practically is true, that you never receive what it is that you desire? What does that say about God? What does that say about you? I want to challenge you with the idea that it only means what you make it mean. So let's say, for instance, you desire to get married, but never throughout the course of your story do you meet someone that it feels like God is forming to be your spouse. That is a situation that, again, invites you into deeper relationship with God, deeper surrender. It's not always going to be something that's like, oh, 1-to-1 here, God gave me this instead, and here's what I'm supposed to do and feel at all the stages. No, it's not going to be linear, might not be pretty, but it is 100% going to be something that is for your good in some way. whether you and I can piece that out today, right here or not, that will 100% be the truth. Because again, that's biblical. The Lord says, Jeremiah 29:11, I know the plans I have for you, plans to give you a hope and a future. Other places where it says that he works all things together for good, that for those that know and love him. All of these things come together and make it so that you are able to really, really trust God with whatever trajectory your life is on. So I challenge you to lean into that, lean into the Lord. Think about that big chest of your Father that you can lean on as you go through this time. And whatever you're waiting for, I really challenge you to wait with God and to wait in a way that allows you to grow through this time with him as you go through it. I hope you have a great week, and I can't wait to spend this month with you talking about timing.
Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of the Authentic Uprising podcast. If you're watching on YouTube or listening on a podcast app, make sure that you hit subscribe so that you can get all of our updates automatically in your app on YouTube. And we also ask that you leave us a review or a comment. If you're in a podcast app, leave us a review. That helps us get seen by more people. And on YouTube, leave us a comment. Let us know what you loved from the episode and send it on to a friend. I am sure that you know someone who really needs the message in this podcast from today. I also encourage you to check out Pink Salt Riot. That is my company that sponsors this podcast. We have an incredible online shop full of all kinds of beautiful and unique Christian lifestyle goods. You can shop our whole line at pinksaltriot.com. I'll see you next week.